El Chapo's reign of terror doesn't seem to be coming to an end anytime soon, even while in prison.
They fed their enemies alive to tigers, electrocuted them, waterboarded them, and shot them at close range with a .50 caliber machine gun.
This time, the notorious drug kingpin has reportedly admitted to killing a TikTok influencer as a brutal example to keep people quiet. Why was she silenced? And how did he pull this off from behind bars? Let's find out. Rivers of blood, El Chapo's reign of terror and life behind bars. El Chapo's reign has always been marked by extreme violence, with US and Mexican authorities linking him to thousands of deaths. While he wasn't charged directly with murder in his US trial, his continuing criminal enterprise charge included a murder conspiracy, and trial testimony detailed his personal involvement in numerous killings.
They fed their enemies alive to tigers, electrocuted them, waterboarded them, and shot them at close range with a .50 caliber machine gun.
The brutality of these murders is difficult to comprehend. Former bodyguard Isaias Valdez Rios testified that El Chapo personally tortured and murdered rivals. In one horrific incident, he beat 2 Los Zetas cartel members for over 3 hours until their bones were broken, then shot them and burned their bodies in a bonfire. In another case, El Chapo tortured a member of the Arellano Felix cartel with burns from an iron and lighter, locked him in a wooden structure, then shot and buried him alive while he was still gasping for air. The cold-blooded nature of these killings shows a man who didn't just order violence, he participated in it directly and seemed to take satisfaction in the suffering of his enemies. In 2010, El Chapo recorded and uploaded a video of himself killing Israel Rincon Martinez, a rival who had mistakenly targeted an ally's son. That same year, he allegedly removed Hugo Hernandez's face with a chainsaw, then affixed it to a soccer ball as a warning to the Juarez cartel. These weren't just murders, they were messages designed to terrify rivals and demonstrate the consequences of crossing the Sinaloa cartel. The scale of violence attributed to El Chapo is staggering. He reportedly admitted to Mexican officials in 2014 that he was responsible for 2,000 to 3,000 deaths, though authorities believe his actions contributed to up to 70,000 deaths tied to Mexico's drug trade. His cartel clashed with rivals like the Zetas, using rocket-propelled grenades and heavy machine guns, leaving mutilated bodies as warnings. Americans weren't spared from El Chapo's violence. In 1985, he was allegedly involved in the murder of 4 American Jehovah's Witnesses in Guadalajara, physically assaulting them before shooting them and dumping their bodies in a shallow grave. Weeks later, he reportedly killed 2 other Americans, Albert Radelat and John Walker, after a rival ordered them into a restaurant's storage room. Testimony from Jesus Zambada Garcia described El Chapo ordering 6 murders, including one for the simple offense of refusing to shake his hand. He employed hitmen known as sicarios to interrogate and eliminate rivals, often recording their acts. Smuggler Edgar Galvan testified about a hitman's murder room with a drain for easy cleanup, a horrifyingly practical approach to routine killing. Beyond drugs and murder, El Chapo's criminal empire included sophisticated money laundering operations to conceal billions in drug profits. He was convicted of participating in a money laundering conspiracy, with the court ordering $12.6 billion in forfeiture. The cartel laundered money through shell companies, real estate, and other investments. Witnesses testified about El Chapo's lavish spending, including homes in every Mexican state, a private zoo, a $10 million beach house, and a yacht named Chapito. His wealth was so vast that Forbes listed him as a billionaire, though exact figures are disputed. Corruption and bribery were essential tools for El Chapo, allowing him to operate with relative impunity. Trial evidence revealed millions in bribes paid to Mexican law enforcement, military, and government officials. A Colombian trafficker, Alex Cifuentes, testified that El Chapo paid a $100 million bribe to former Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto to ensure his safety, though Peña Nieto's spokesman called the claim false and defamatory. El Chapo's ability to escape Mexican prisons twice highlights the depth of corruption in the system. In 2001, he bribed prison guards, including Francisco El Chito Camberos Rivera, who opened his cell door, allowing him to hide in a laundry cart and escape. In 2015, his sons bribed officials to smuggle a GPS watch into Altiplano prison, enabling diggers to build a tunnel with a motorcycle for his escape. The cartel paid millions, including a reported $50 million bribe fund for Mexico's head of public security to protect operations. This corruption extended to local police and military, allowing El Chapo to evade capture for years. Beyond drugs, murder, and corruption, the Sinaloa cartel under El Chapo diversified into other crimes, including human trafficking, extortion, kidnapping, and protection rackets, expanding their criminal portfolio to maximize profits. El Chapo's 2019 trial in Brooklyn provided unprecedented insight into his crimes. Over 11 weeks, 14 cooperating witnesses, including cartel members like Ray and Vicente Zambada, testified about his operations. Evidence included seizures of over 130,000 kilograms of cocaine and heroin, weapons, including AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenade launchers, intercepted recordings, ledgers, text messages, and videos detailing 25 years of trafficking from 1989 to 2014. On February 12, 2019, El Chapo was convicted on all counts, including drug trafficking, firearms use, money laundering, and leading a criminal enterprise. He was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years on July 17, 2019, and ordered to pay $12.6 billion in forfeiture. Today, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman is serving his sentence at the United States Penitentiary Administrative Maximum Facility, ADX Florence, in Colorado, known as the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This is no ordinary prison. It's specifically designed to house the most dangerous criminals in the US prison system, and El Chapo's conditions there are extremely restrictive.
You would be subject to a full strip search, including humiliating cavity searches every time you left your cell, even if you left your cell to go to a shower. You would be in full shackles every time you leave your cell. Inside the shower, they would keep the leg shackles on, but they'll just take your handcuffs off.
He's held in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day in a 7x12-foot concrete cell, with only 1 hour for exercise in a confined space. El Chapo has described these conditions as inhumane, citing physical, emotional, and mental torture due to isolation, lack of sunlight, and limited access to fresh air or natural light. He's complained about being forced to drink unsanitary water and sleep with lights on, which his legal team claims is psychologically damaging. Special Administrative Measures, SAMs, severely limit his contact with the outside world, driven by fears he could communicate with Sinaloa cartel associates. He's allowed minimal phone calls and visits, restricted to immediate family like his twin daughters, with all interactions recorded. His wife, Emma Coronel Aispuro, has been barred from visiting, partly due to prosecutors' concerns about her passing messages. El Chapo has repeatedly requested reinstatement of phone and visiting privileges, including in letters to Judge Brian Cogan in 2023 and 2024, but these have been denied, as the Bureau of Prisons controls his conditions. He's pursued various legal appeals to challenge his conviction and prison conditions. In 2022, a federal appeals court upheld his 2019 conviction, rejecting claims of unfair trial conditions. In 2023, a U.S. court denied his habeas corpus petitions to review his sentencing. He's expressed frustration, claiming his trial was stained by juror misconduct and U.S. government corruption. His legal team continues to push for better conditions and visitation rights, but no significant changes have been granted. In a 2023 letter, El Chapo detailed grievances about limited commissary access, e.g., delays in getting stamps, and described his isolation as psychological torment. He sent an SOS to Mexico's president, requesting extradition to Mexico, which was dismissed as unlikely. His letters reflect a sense of despair, noting he may never see his wife or mother, who died in 2023, again. ADX Florence is considered escape-proof, housing high-profile inmates like Ted Kaczynski and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev. El Chapo's history of escaping Mexican prisons in 2001 and 2015 justifies the extreme security. Despite his complaints, authorities maintain strict measures to prevent any cartel-related activity. El Chapo's crimes had profound effects across multiple countries. In the United States, his trafficking fueled drug addiction and violence, with prosecutors noting thousands of deaths linked to his operations. In Mexico, his cartel's violence destabilized communities, and his escapes humiliated the government, exposing systemic corruption. The Sinaloa cartel operated globally in the US, Europe, and beyond, with El Chapo's strategies setting a blueprint for modern cartels. Perhaps most disturbing is that despite El Chapo's conviction and imprisonment, the Sinaloa cartel remains active under leaders like Ismael El Mayo Zambada and El Chapo's sons, suggesting his removal did little to curb drug flows.
Known as Los Chapitos, the four most trusted sons of the world's most notorious drug kingpin, As the I-Team has reported for several years, federal drug investigators here in Chicago consider El Chapo's sons in charge of the Sinaloa cartel that remains this area's largest trafficker of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamines.
The empire he built continues to operate, a testament to how deeply entrenched these criminal organizations have become in the fabric of international drug trafficking. Now that we've explored El Chapo's gruesome criminal activities, let's answer the question that is on everyone's lips. Who is El Chapo, and how did he become Mexico's most notorious drug lord? From rags to riches, the rise of Mexico's most notorious drug lord. Imagine growing up so poor in rural Mexico that your only options seem to be working in poppy fields or finding your own path to survival. That was the reality for Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera, better known to the world as El Chapo. Born in La Tuna, a tiny village in the rugged mountains of Badiraguato, Sinaloa, Mexico, El Chapo's early life was defined by extreme poverty and struggle. There's actually some confusion about when exactly El Chapo was born. Some reports say December 25th, 1954, while others claim it was April 4th, 1957. But what's clear is that his childhood was incredibly difficult. Growing up in the remote Sierra Madre Occidental region, his father was officially a cattle rancher, but local reports suggest he was actually involved in growing opium poppies, which are used to make heroin. This wasn't uncommon in the area, where legal opportunities were scarce and the drug trade offered a way out of poverty. El Chapo's relationship with his father was particularly troubled. He suffered abuse at home, and this harsh upbringing likely shaped the man he would become. With only a third-grade education, imagine being a young teenager and suddenly getting kicked out of your own home by your father. That's exactly what happened to El Chapo, who was forced to leave and move in with his grandfather. Standing at just 5 feet 6 inches tall with a stocky build, he earned the nickname El Chapo, which literally means shorty in Mexican slang. But don't let the somewhat comical nickname fool you. This was a man who would rise to become one of the most powerful and feared criminals in the world. As a teenager, El Chapo started growing marijuana with his cousins. This wasn't some rebellious phase. In Badiraguato, working in the drug trade was simply one of the few economic opportunities available. Many locals worked in poppy fields, and El Chapo was just following a path that others before him had taken. But he had bigger ambitions. In his 20s, seeking better opportunities, El Chapo left his hometown. This would be a pivotal moment that set him on the path to building his criminal empire. He connected with his uncle, Pedro Aviles Perez, who was actually a pioneer in Mexican drug trafficking. This family connection gave El Chapo his entry point into organized crime, and he proved to be a quick study. By the late 1970s, El Chapo was working for Hector El Güero Palma, overseeing the transportation of drugs from the Sierra Madre Mountains to urban areas near the US-Mexico border. He wasn't just another foot soldier. He showed remarkable efficiency and ambition, traits that would repeatedly help him climb the ranks of the criminal underworld. El Chapo's talents didn't go unnoticed. The Guadalajara cartel, which was Mexico's dominant drug syndicate in the 1980s, saw potential in him. Led by Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo, known as El Padrino, the Godfather, this organization controlled most of the drug routes from Mexico to the United States. By the early 1980s, El Chapo was introduced to Félix Gallardo, marking a significant step up in his criminal career. Then came a major turning point. In 1989, Félix Gallardo was arrested, creating a power vacuum in the Mexican drug trade. The Guadalajara cartel fragmented, and El Chapo seized the opportunity. Along with allies like Ismael El Mayo Zambada, he took control of the Sinaloa faction. This was the birth of what would become the infamous Sinaloa cartel. El Chapo wasn't just brutal, he was innovative. Under his leadership, the Sinaloa cartel built sophisticated transportation networks, including elaborate tunnels under the US-Mexico border. His business acumen was remarkable. He formed strategic alliances with Colombian cartels at a time when US pressure on Caribbean routes was forcing them to shift operations through Mexico. These partnerships helped solidify his influence and expand his operation globally. While building his empire, El Chapo also built a family. He had at least 3 marriages, most notably to Emma Coronel Aispuro in 2007, a former beauty queen who would later become infamous in her own right. El Chapo is believed to have fathered between 9 and 13 children, some of whom followed in their father's footsteps. His sons, particularly Ivan Guzman, became involved in the family business and were known for their lavish lifestyles and social media presence. The wealth El Chapo accumulated was staggering. Forbes magazine estimated his worth at $1 billion in 2009 and even included him on their billionaire list. but experts suggest his actual profits were probably lower due to the enormous operational costs of running a global drug empire. Still, there's no question that El Chapo amassed incredible wealth through his criminal activities. Interestingly, despite his brutal reputation, El Chapo became something of a folk hero in Sinaloa. He funded community projects, paid for baptisms, and built infrastructure in poor areas. This calculated generosity earned him loyalty among locals, who saw him as a benevolent figure rather than a violent criminal. It was a smart strategy. By portraying himself as someone who helped the community, he secured protection and support in his home territory. El Chapo's legend grew so large that he inspired Mexican narco corridos, ballads, and was referenced in American music by artists like Uncle Murda and Gucci Mane. His fascination with fame even led to a bizarre 2015 meeting with actor Sean Penn, which was facilitated by actress Kate Del Castillo. El Chapo was reportedly interested in producing a biopic about his life, a vanity project that ironically helped authorities track him down. But life for those connected to El Chapo wasn't easy, even for family members who tried to stay legitimate. The shadow of his criminal empire affected everything they did.
We are afraid that something could happen to my children because of all that. I can have more business, more things. I operate my own business, but because of that, I can't open more business.
His wife, Emma Coronel, was deeply entangled in El Chapo's criminal world, despite later attempts to portray herself as innocent. Experts who studied the case paint a very different picture.
She was clearly exposed to all of the things that Chapo was in control of, the movement of narcotics across the border into the United States, and obviously the flow of money back.
In fact, those familiar with Emma's role in the organization describe her as anything but naive.
Emma Coronel is not the innocent individual that she pretends to be. She is very cold, calculating, and a very cunning woman.
El Chapo also had relationships outside his marriages, including with Lucero Guadalupe Sanchez, who was both his lover and an operative in his organization. What makes this relationship particularly notable is that Sanchez was also a legislator in the Mexican state of Sinaloa, showing how El Chapo's influence extended into legitimate political circles. Testifying in court, she explained her romantic relationship with El Chapo, and at the same time, how she worked for him, buying marijuana for him and sending it over to him by planes. Sanchez's testimony during El Chapo's trial provided a rare glimpse into the complex relationships within his orbit, a mix of romance, fear, and business.
In her testimony, she sounded sad. It looked like a mix of resignation and also nervousness. She kind of showed a mix of love and fear for Mr. Guzman.
From humble beginnings in the mountains of Sinaloa to becoming the head of a global criminal enterprise, El Chapo's rise represents one of the most remarkable and disturbing success stories in criminal history. His journey from poverty to power shows how a combination of ambition, ruthlessness, and business savvy can build an empire, even an illegal one. And as we'll see in the next section, he wasn't the only one. Bloody legacies, other cartel leaders who admit to killings. Welcome to the final section of our deep dive into the world of drug cartels and their notorious leaders. While El Chapo might be the most famous cartel leader globally, he's far from alone in his brutal tactics. Let's examine other major figures who have admitted to or been directly implicated in killings to cover up their crimes. First, let's look at Ismael El Mayo Zambada, a co-founder of the Sinaloa cartel alongside El Chapo. Zambada has been a key figure in Mexico's drug trade for decades, known for his strategic leadership and ability to evade capture until his arrest in July 2024. Some analysts have suggested that while El Chapo became the public face of the Sinaloa cartel, Zambada was wielding equal or greater power behind the scenes. In 2024, after his arrest in the US, Zambada made a shocking claim in a letter about the murder of Hector Cuen, a political opponent of Sinaloa Governor Ruben Rocha. According to Zambada, Cuen was murdered on July 25, 2024, at a ranch where Zambada was allegedly kidnapped. Federal prosecutors in Mexico confirmed finding Cuen's blood at the ranch, contradicting the state's narrative that Cuen had been killed during a random robbery at a gas station. This revelation suggests Zambada's knowledge of and possible involvement in a cover-up to protect political allies or conceal cartel operations. While he didn't directly confess to ordering the killing, his detailed account implicates cartel involvement in a politically motivated murder to suppress opposition. Zambada has also been charged with murder conspiracies in the US, including ordering torture and and killings to maintain cartel control. A 2023 U.S. Justice Department indictment notes his faction's use of extreme violence, though specific admissions of cover-up killings are less explicit beyond the Cuen case. It's worth noting that Zambada's admissions appear strategic, often aimed at exposing corrupt officials or rival factions, e.g. the Chapitos, El Chapo's sons. His role in the Cuen case points to a cover-up to protect political networks tied to the cartel, a common tactic to maintain influence. Next, let's examine Miguel Ángel Treviño Morales, known as Zed-40, and his brother Omar Treviño Morales Zed-42, who led Los Zetas, one of Mexico's most notoriously violent cartels, and later its successor, Cartel del Noreste, CDN. Miguel led from 2012 until his 2013 arrest, followed by Omar until his 2015 capture. U.S. indictments unsealed in 2024 charge both brothers with engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise involving multiple murder conspiracies to eliminate rivals, Mexican and Guatemalan officials, and witnesses. Court documents allege they conspired to kill to protect drug trafficking routes and cover up cartel operations, including targeting informants and law enforcement. Miguel Treviño Morales was implicated in the 2011 massacre of 72 migrants in San Fernando, Tamaulipas, where Los Zetas killed to prevent rival cartels from recruiting them. While not a direct confession, Miguel's leadership role and subsequent indictments suggest he ordered these killings to conceal recruitment efforts and maintain territorial control. The brothers are also accused of killing informants and witnesses to prevent cooperation with authorities. For example, U.S. charges detail conspiracies to murder individuals who posed threats to their operations, a tactic to cover up cartel activities. Los Zetas' militaristic structure relied on extreme violence to suppress dissent and maintain secrecy. The Treviño brothers' admissions are inferred through legal charges and their documented leadership in violent operations, though direct confessions are limited to court allegations. Another significant figure is Rubén Oseguera González, known as El Menchito, son of Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, leader Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera Cervantes. El Menchito was a high-ranking leader in the CJNG, overseeing drug trafficking and violent operations until his extradition to the U.S. in 2020. During his 2024 trial in the U.S., Oseguera González made direct confessions of murders that are particularly disturbing. He admitted to personally killing 5 men who owed him drug money, shooting a rival cartel member, and executing a subordinate. These killings were intended to eliminate debts and prevent leaks about CJNG operations, effectively covering up financial and operational details. Court testimony revealed that Oseguera González ordered the murder of over 100 people, some to eliminate threats to the cartel's fentanyl and methamphetamine trade. For instance, in 2017, he orchestrated the killing of a witness and informant to prevent testimony against the CJNG. In 2015, Oseguera González directed an attack on a Mexican military helicopter to evade capture, killing 9 service members. This was a clear cover-up to protect his leadership role and the cartel's operations. El Menchito's confessions in court provide direct evidence of his role in killings to conceal crimes, reflecting the CJNG's aggressive expansion strategy. His life sentence in 2025 underscores the scale of his admitted violence. A particularly unique case is that of José Manuel Martínez, known as El Mano Negra, the Black Hand. Martínez was a self-described enforcer for an unidentified Mexican cartel, operating in both the US and Mexico and committing murders over 3 decades until his arrest in 2013. In 2015, Martínez pleaded guilty to 9 murders in California between 1980 and 2011, admitting he was hired to kill to collect debts and eliminate threats to the cartel. His plea agreement details killings to cover up drug trafficking operations, including a 1980 murder in Lindsay, California, to settle a debt. After his arrest at the US-Mexico border, Martínez confessed to additional killings across the US, including one in Alabama for derogatory remarks about his daughter, which served to maintain his reputation and deter informants. He provided precise details about crime scenes, confirming his role in cover-up killings. Martínez's confessions are unusually candid, likely due to his plea deal to avoid the death penalty. His role as an enforcer highlights the cartel practice of outsourcing killings to conceal operations, though his lack of specificity about which cartel he worked for limits deeper insight. Finally, let's look at Nestor Isidro Perez Salas, known as El Nini, a lead sicario, assassin, for the Sinaloa cartel's Chapitos faction, who was extradited to the US in May 2024. He commanded the Ninis, a violent security group protecting the Chapitos, El Chapo's sons who now run portions of the cartel. US court documents allege Perez Salas tortured and killed a DEA confidential source and others in retaliation for cooperating with authorities aiming to prevent testimony against the Chapitos. In 2017, he and 2 Chapitos captured and killed 2 Mexican federal law enforcement officers, and later that year tortured and killed 3 Los Zetas members to eliminate rivals. These acts were designed to cover up the cartel's fentanyl trafficking and maintain control. In a particularly disturbing allegation, in 2022, Perez Salas allegedly tested fentanyl potency on kidnapped individuals, killing them to ensure product quality and avoid detection by authorities, essentially using human beings as lab rats for drug testing. While Perez Salas has not publicly confessed, US indictments detail his role in targeted killings to eliminate threats, a clear cover-up strategy. His extradition and charges reflect his centrality to the Chapitos' violent operations. Looking at these 5 examples, Zambada, the Trevino brothers, Oseguera Gonzalez, Martinez, and Perez Salas, we can identify common patterns in how cartel leaders use murder to protect their operations. These leaders have admitted to or been implicated in killings to eliminate witnesses, informants, rivals, or debts that threatened their operations. Cover-ups often involved political corruption, as in Zambada's Quen case, or extreme violence to instill fear, like Oseguera Gonzalez's mass murders. Direct confessions from cartel leaders are relatively rare and typically occur in US courts under plea deals, as with Martinez and Oseguera Gonzalez, or through strategic disclosures, like Zambada's letter. Most admissions are inferred from indictments and court documents, as cartel leaders generally avoid self-incrimination in Mexico due to weaker judicial systems and fear of reprisals. We can also observe differences in how various cartels operate. The CJNG and Los Zetas leaders, Oseguera Gonzalez and the Trevino brothers, exhibit more explicit violence compared to Sinaloa's strategic cover-ups, Zambada and Perez Salas, reflecting differing operational styles. The Sinaloa cartel often leverages political ties, while CJNG and Los Zetas have historically prioritized brute force. The connection between corruption and cartel violence is clear across all these cases. Killings often protect corrupt networks, as seen in Sinaloa's governor connection in the Quen case. This symbiotic relationship between cartels and corrupt officials creates a system where violence becomes a tool for maintaining both criminal operations and political influence. Despite El Chapo's conviction and the arrests of other major figures like those we've discussed, cartels remain powerful forces in Mexico and beyond.
He hates El Chapo because allegedly he certainly believes that El Chapo orchestrated hits on him not once, but 4 times when he was in prison.
El Chapo, Zambada, the Trevino brothers, Oseguera Gonzalez, Martinez, and Perez Salas have all been directly linked to killings to cover up crimes, ranging from witness elimination to political assassinations. Their actions reflect a broader pattern of using violence to maintain secrecy, protect profits, and suppress opposition, often in collusion with corrupt officials. The most explicit confessions typically come from US legal proceedings, highlighting the role of extradition in uncovering these crimes. However, despite the imprisonment of several major figures, the cartels themselves continue to thrive, adapting to the removal of individual leaders. If you found this information valuable, click on any of the cards on your screen for more in-depth content.